In micro American indie film news, we now switch gears and we move on to Sean Baker, which is he worked obviously. It comes to no surprise that he works on these microfilms and that flies so low to the ground that we just learn about them just around the time where it's wrapping up. So yeah, let's talk about Sean Baker here. Red Rocket. Where was it shot? What do you think the title might mean? And what does it say about Sean Baker that he's very precise in locations? He's always moving geographically to different locales.
Yeah, he is in Texas wrapping up this film. The only things we know is that it's independently financed, probably a dark comedy. And that is about it. But you're right. His films, at least to date, have really inhabited the cities or surroundings they're set in. So that's really a huge deal. This film will star Simon Rex, who I don't know very well, but is part of the Scary Movie franchise, which is a bit surprising. But what strikes me is that Sean Baker is someone who he excels at sort of being. I mean, all of his films to some degree have had a bit of a spirit of just being outside of the system, made with his own ideas and concepts about about how they're shot and what they're trying to say. So it doesn't surprise me he's once again just channeling his own creative energy without much in the way of outside influence, which is great.
So post the Florida Project, which was a 2017 film, it got tremendous buzz for him, and I imagine he'd been offered new projects, better funding, and I think it says a lot about why I love this filmmaker so much. I presume that he'll never touch a Marvel-type film. If we look into this actor that he enlisted, his past sort of like belongs to the fringe of some of these non-actors that he's worked with in the past. And also the matter that he teamed with Drew Daniels, which is a first-time pairing for him. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, like let's think about the visual vocabulary and what a film with Drew Daniels could look like. So Drew Daniels worked with Trey Schultz, his first three features, and namely his last feature was something that was The Vistas, which was much more larger. So are you expecting something that might fall back into the minimalist contributions of Sean Baker, of literally all his other worlds that he's created?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but the choice of Drew Daniels is very interesting. Again, you make up a good point, particularly that Drew Daniels, his last feature was Waves, which was just like a huge piece. Like aside from the story itself, took some really bold visual swings. Like it really, really went for it with a lot of bold lighting, and it was just very wild, and certainly much different than we've seen Sean Baker do. And just to circle back to Sean Baker in general and how he films, I mean, I follow him on Letterboxd, where he posts like movies he watches, mm-hmm. and he watches like a lot of like independent, weird Italian giallo and horror films and cult films and B movies, and I think all of those have that spirit of I'm just a guy with a camera and I'm going to go make something, and I think he brings that that sort of work ethic into his own work, which is obviously nothing like those films, but I think he uses that same spirit. So yeah, I think we can expect, I hope, and I think we can expect that he will sort of push himself to the next phase in his storytelling. And it'll be interesting to see what that looks like.
That's worth mentioning. I've never visited Texas, but Texas is like the demographics and the backdrop of Texas is like from north to south. It's so vast and different. So mm-hmm. I think once we identify which city he filmed in, or perhaps it's a road trip film. We don't know.
Mhm.
I think we'll get a better idea as to how this dark comedy might turn out to be. Maybe it's a Fellini film. Maybe it's, like you said, one of these fringe B film filmmakers. Maybe there's a lineage to that. So we'll get some news, but as we know, these productions are usually close to the vest until they premiere at a major film festival. So something to look out for in 2021 for sure. Perhaps past the midway point, perhaps maybe a Venice. Maybe he'll try his hand at that. I'm Eric Lavallée. I'm editor-in-chief and site owner for IONCINEMA.com, and this is
Kevin Jagernauth, contributing writer for the playlist.
And together we are IndieSponge.